Welcome back, you guys. Kick back and relax as we dive into another episode of Skip to Saturday. Hey, you guys. Welcome back. I hope that you guys are having a fantastic week so far. In today's episode, I'm going to cover toxic relationships. Essentially, toxic relationships are unhealthy relations with people and things around us. This could apply to the relationships you have with your parents, siblings, partner, friends, relatives, mentors, bosses, and believe it or not, you can have an unhealthy relationship with food, yourself, and materialistic things. But for today's episode, I'm going to focus on toxic romantic relationships. I personally haven't been in a relationship that was toxic, but from all my years on this planet Earth, I know enough that being in a toxic relationship is damaging to a person's self-esteem, right? Their confidence, their self-worth, and not to mention how it impacts their mental health as well. I remember reading somewhere that we don't talk enough about paper cuts in relationships, and paper cuts is reference to every time there is a raised voice, an exchange of cruel words, lack of support, lack of affection, short temper. Whenever that happens, when it takes place in your relationship, a tiny wound is created. It's not big enough to make you want to leave the relationship, but enough to make a part of you pull away, and eventually over time you will lose a little part of yourself. If you don't know what toxic love or an unhealthy relationship looks like, I'm going to sum it up here for you because I feel like some people may not know the signs of being in a toxic relationship. And sometimes people haven't been fortunate enough to see what a healthy relationship looks like. So whatever was modeled for them when they were younger is all that they know. And in their minds, all the harmful behaviors that they witnessed between their parents or relatives, whoever it may be, they're all going to look and feel acceptable. And so they go out and behave in the same way in relationships. And I just want to say that being in a toxic relationship is not something you'll pick up on right away. The behaviors start to take place over time, and it's really subtle. It's stuff that we overlook. And what ends up happening is that it creates this unending cycle of emotional and psychological torture. As crazy as this might sound, when people have been in unhealthy relationships for such a long time, right? They begin to feel like they deserve it. So toxic love can manifest in so many different ways, but there are some patterns and behaviors that you should look out for. Ultimately, everything is harmful and controlling. So the 5 patterns of behavior that you should look for are emotional abuse, jealousy and possessiveness, control and manipulation, lack of respect, and physical abuse. So with emotional abuse, this can include constant criticism, belittling, gaslighting, or threats. Basically, they're going to make you feel like you're worthless and insecure, and they're going to want to control your emotions. To expand on emotional abuse, there are 10 signs of an emotional abuse that you may or may not be aware of. Constant criticism, control and manipulation, gaslighting. This is when a person makes you doubt your own perceptions, memories, or feelings and insists that you're wrong when you really aren't. Isolation is another one. Emotional neglect, threats and intimidation, withholding affection. Basically, this is like a cycle of reward and punishment. So you'll receive affection if you meet their needs, and if you don't, then they'll withhold affection from you. Dismissiveness, blame shifting. With blame shifting, what happens is that instead of the abuser taking responsibility, the victim is made to feel responsible for the problems in the relationship and or their emotions, which is flat out selfish, right? And the last one is unpredictable responses. So basically, you're just walking on eggshells here. So the second one was jealousy and possessiveness. A toxic partner may become jealous of your friends, family, or even your hobbies. They may try to isolate you from others or monitor your activities. So just to give you a little example, it's when your partner gets pissed off that you talk, call, touch, text, or hang out with another person, and then they take the anger out on you. And that's just a way to control your behavior. This type of behavior might also lead to them like hacking into your email accounts, looking through your text messages when you aren't around, and quite possibly even stalk you or show up to places unannounced when they clearly weren't invited. Control and manipulation. Toxic partners will often try to control your decisions, finances, or even your appearance, and they may use guilt, threats, or emotional blackmail to get their way. Lack of respect. They most likely will not respect your boundaries, opinions, or feelings, and they will dismiss your concerns or make you feel like you're not good enough. And the last one is physical abuse. We all know that that's unacceptable. In some cases, toxic relationships may get physical, or there might be threats of violence. So either one of those would be considered toxic. I remember back in high school, I took sociology, and in that class, we covered domestic violence. We also had a guest speaker who was a domestic violence survivor. And domestic abuse was all that I knew that was abusive in a relationship. Like physical violence was considered abuse, and that was it for me. I had no idea that constant criticism or belittling was considered emotional abuse. And gaslighting wasn't even in my vocabulary until like 2 to 3 years ago. So it's really important to know what the patterns and signs are when it comes to love that is toxic, because sometimes we overlook a lot of things when we are in love, right? We make excuses sometimes, but the reality is it's just a way for us to feel better about what's really happening. Or if we don't know what signs to look for, or we're not aware of what is considered toxic and abusive, we may think that that behavior is normal. So I think this information is really good to know because, like I said, I had no idea that some of these behaviors were considered toxic. Another way that toxic love can manifest is when a person gives you just enough to keep you around. They give you just enough attention and affection to keep you invested, right? But they're truly not committed to you, and they don't satisfy your emotional needs. And this is what they call breadcrumbing. That's another term that is very novel to me. And people can only break out of this cycle if they're able to recognize what's happening. And for majority of the people, they don't know that this is what's happening to them until later down the road. I think it's really important to have an understanding of your worth, and what you deserve. Like, I personally wouldn't want a person in my life, doesn't matter if it's a romantic partner or a friend, I wouldn't want a person whose energy and actions confuse me. It's just not worth your time. We all deserve clarity, calmness, and natural connections. So if you know your worth, you will know the difference between what you're getting and what you deserve. If you're sitting there questioning their actions and there's no peace in your relationship, or when you do experience an ounce of peace and then things go back to the way they were, for me, what that tells me is that that person is not going to change anytime soon, or if at all. Simply, that relationship is not worth it. People change if they want to. You can't make them, period. And once you know your worth and you have that clarity of what you want in your life and how you want to be treated, you will walk out of any relationship a lot faster if your partner crosses your boundaries or makes you question your self-worth, belittles you, doesn't treat you the way you want to be treated. And this really just comes down from clarity, having clarity of what you want and what you deserve. So the one thing that I've always wondered is, why do people, or some people I should say, choose to stay in unhealthy relationships? I knew some girls growing up who put up with a lot of messed up behavior, and I just never understood why someone would subject themselves to that. You're voluntarily allowing this person to treat you this way. You have the option to leave, but yet you are still in this relationship. That never made sense to me, and it made me sad to an extent, because what you hear, it breaks your heart, and you know that they deserve better. But like I said, people only change if they want to change. You can't make them change. So I can't make this person see what I see that is wrong in the relationship, or I can't make them leave that relationship because I believe that they deserve better. They have to know that on their own. And the person who was treating them like shit, you can't make them change either. Like, they have to see that they're doing something wrong. So because I always wondered that, I had to do a lot of research to understand why people choose to stay in unhealthy relationships. And one thing I realized is that as humans, we crave familiarity and safety. When a person is in a toxic relationship, for them, they know what to expect. And in a really odd way, it makes them feel safe because with the unknown, they don't know what's going to happen, and that doesn't feel safe. So that's one reason as to why people choose to stay in unhealthy marriages and relationships. The other reasons why people choose to stay is that one, they're waiting for the good times to reappear. We all hope for better days. If you listen to the first episode in the season, I talked about how I held on to hope that A class would turn around. So it doesn't matter whether you are in a relationship or starting your business or at a job that you don't really feel satisfied and fulfilled. Instead of leaving, we always have that hope that like maybe things will turn around. My question would be to anyone that who's stuck, feeling stuck in a relationship or whatever the situation may be, is how long are you willing to wait? What if those days never come back? Do you really want to spend the next 5 to 10 years waiting for those days? You know what? Let's reframe this. The proper question would be, how long are you willing to stay in a toxic relationship? Maybe this doesn't apply to you, but it may apply to someone that you know. So I'm going to take a hypothetical situation. If someone you love and care for comes to you one day and they tell you that they're in a toxic relationship and they tell you that this person that they're with is treating them a certain way and they've listed some of the behaviors that I went over earlier, and you realize in your mind that this is a toxic relationship, what would you say to them? Think about it for a moment. If your answer was, you deserve to be in a relationship where you're respected, loved properly, where you can thrive and you don't have to water down who you are, your feelings are taken into consideration, and you can be yourself without having to worry about what you're going to hear. If that was your answer to this person, now why would this same advice not be relevant to you? Why are we different to the people that we love and care for? Another reason why some people choose to stay in an unhealthy relationship is that they're holding out on hope that the other person will change. I said this before, people don't change unless they want to, right? If you really are holding on to that hope that they'll change, the best way to assess whether or not this person is going to change anytime soon is by paying attention to their behavioral patterns. If you have that conversation with them and they start to make changes and it happens consistently, then that person is making that effort to change because you are important to them and they value having you in their life and they don't want to lose you. But if they have not made any changes, then there's a slim chance that they won't change. They can't imagine life without that person. I'm going to be blunt here. If you were fine before them, you'll be fine after as well. Some people don't have the financial means to leave. I understand that, but it's also not the right call because your sanity and peace will always come first. You will figure out your financial situation, even though it might be hard, but it's never the right reason to stay in a relationship, in my opinion. Some people believe that loyalty means staying no matter what. Here's the thing, loyalty should not cost you your peace or happiness. I also think that some people have pride and ego when it comes to walking away from a relationship that's no longer serving them or it's really unhealthy. They want to continue with this image that everything is great when it's not. They don't want to prove other people right. And with this, what I mean is that sometimes people know that the person that we're with is probably not the best choice for us, but we go ahead and make that decision for ourselves anyways. And then if that relationship ends up being one that's unhealthy and really toxic, sometimes people will let their pride and ego get in the way and will stay in it because they just don't want to hear everyone else telling them, well, we told you so. We knew this was going to happen. And I'm not saying that you should make decisions based on what other people think is right for you, but sometimes if you have a good sounding board and people who have your best interest at heart, they can usually tell if someone is good for you or not. And I said this in episode 3 as well. The people who really know you will know if the person you're dating to marry is right for you. And another thing to keep in mind is that the right people in your life are going to voice their opinion, but at the same time, they're going to let you make your own decisions. And if that decision ends up being the wrong one, they're also not going to rub it in your face either. So another reason why people stay is that they fear of making the wrong decision. They're waiting for the other person to end the relationship. They don't want to hurt other people who might be impacted. I understand this one to a certain extent because I feel like in the Desi community, sometimes people who want to leave their marriage feel like they can't because their parents or their extended family, whoever it may be that they're really close to, are gonna feel really let down or really sad that they've chosen to divorce. But ultimately, this is your life, and you can't base decisions on how other people are gonna feel because they are doing what's good for them. Everyone's living their life the way that they want to, and they're not sitting around waiting for people to tell them what to do. So I get that they don't want to disappoint people, but at the same time, it's costing their peace and happiness. And I will always say that your peace and happiness should be your number one priority because if you are happy, that trickles down to everyone around you. If you're unhappy, that also trickles down to everyone around you. So the best decision would be the one where you are at peace and happy, even though it might impact them, but it's also not the end of the world. Another reason why some people may stay in a toxic relationship is that they're not tired enough. I remember my therapist once said to me, "How long are you willing to be miserable for?" At that time, I was talking to him about something else that was going on in my life, but that question really does apply in every area of our life. Another question that you can ask yourself or someone who is in an unhealthy situation is, how bad does it have to get before you say, "I'm done"? And ask yourself if you're okay with being loved this way for the rest of your life. I feel like these questions really make you think. Like if you reframe something in a certain way, it can get someone thinking. So sometimes getting through to someone or even getting through yourself, you have to kind of reframe things so it hits differently. At the end of the day, we all have a choice. I know I'm making it sound like it's such an easy decision. When emotions aren't involved, it is. I know people will say there are kids involved, or we've been together for so many years, or I don't know what I would do if I did leave. Just because you've been together for 10, 15 years, or however long it is, it's never a good enough reason to stay in an unhealthy relationship. Number two, staying for the kids is never the right decision. And I'll get into that in a different episode. Relationships aside, there have been many moments in life where we didn't know what was going to happen next, but things worked out or we figured it out, right? Take COVID, for example. There was so much uncertainty during that time of our lives. We had no idea what to expect. Like everything was changing from day to day. We had no idea what to expect in the next week. We had no idea when this pandemic was going to end, but we pulled through, we managed. It was hard, it was stressful, it was a lot of anxiety, but we made it through. And that's a mindset that you have to have with almost anything, right? If you are afraid of the unknown, know that yes, it's going to be hard because you don't know what to expect. You might not feel safe, but you will figure it out. But you will figure it out. But you will figure it out. This is no different to anything else that you've experienced in your life before. You've probably heard or seen videos of Dr. Gabor Mate. He's a physician and author who specializes in addiction treatment and childhood development. I came across his video, and in that video, he said, you can have the pain of staying in an unhealthy relationship, or you can have the pain of leaving. You're going to have pain one way or another. Choose a pain that leads to your freedom and inner peace. When I heard this, I was like, wow, that is so true. Sometimes when we're looking at our options, none of them look like they're going to be a win. But if you look at the outcome of those options that you have, there's for sure one that's going to feel like a win in the long run. In that moment, it won't feel like it, but it eventually will. For me, and this is going to be a really stupid example, but basically, when I think about marriage and possibly moving away from my hometown, I think about all that I'm going to leave behind, like my sister, my nephew, my family, the places that I've been really familiar with all my life. And it feels like a huge loss when I think about it. But then I have to remind myself that if it were to come down to that, where I had to move because my partner wasn't from California, I would be moving away to build a life and a family with this person, which is a huge gain, right? Living out the rest of my life with my partner who makes my life better and adds to it, that's a huge gain. So sometimes we're going to lose either way, but you have to know what outcome you're looking for and go with the choice that will result in that outcome. It's so important to remember that we all deserve to be in a healthy, loving relationship where we feel safe, respected, valued. If you are in a relationship and it's unhealthy and it's very toxic for you, I would urge you to seek help from a trusted friend, family member, a therapist, or a domestic violence hotline, because the most loving thing that you can do for yourself is to walk away from a relationship that is no longer serving you. Don't let your pride, ego, or fear hold you back from making the decision that will set you free and bring you inner peace. I want to share something that Mark Manson once said. He said, "Unhealthy love often feels exciting, dramatic, and profound, but it hurts us in the long run. Healthy love often feels dull, peaceful, and repetitive, but it heals us in the long run." Going through a roller coaster of emotions in a relationship is not healthy at all. People think real love is all about the thrill, the chase, the game. It's not. That's not what a healthy relationship looks like. There is this psychologist, her name is Caroline Middlesdorf. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing her last name wrong, but she's a psychologist and she is a trauma coach. And what she said about love, relationships, and trauma was really insightful. She said that trauma impacts the way we approach love and relationships. Many of us were raised in environments where emotional needs weren't met, whether through neglect, emotional unavailability, or unhealthy dynamics like constant arguing or emotional manipulation. As a result, we often learn that love isn't something that's steady and safe, but something that must be chased or earned. We become conditioned to believe that love requires working for it, proving our worth, or constantly trying to fix things. This pattern of chasing love is deeply rooted in childhood trauma, especially for those who grew up with emotionally unavailable parents or in homes where affection was unpredictable. Maybe you had a parent who withdrew love when you needed it most. Or perhaps love was only shown after conflict was resolved, leaving you with the belief that passion had to come with emotional chaos. This is how unhealthy passion gets mistaken for real love. The intense highs feels like relief and the lows feel familiar, even comforting. FYI, this isn't love. It's a trauma response. It's the wound reopening again and again because we've never healed. And while it's complex, it's absolutely possible to break free from this pattern. The key is recognizing it, healing those deep seated wounds, and learning to build real, safe, and healthy connections. When I came across that, I was like, wow. Okay, so even though it looks like someone is choosing to be in a relationship that's unhealthy for them, but it's just wired in their mind that this is what they deserve and this is what real love looks like and this is how it should feel because of what they experienced in their childhood. It's crazy how much of the things that happen in our childhoods, manifest in our adult lives. And you know what I've noticed is that even in some of the TV shows or movies that we watch, there are a lot of toxic behaviors that are on display between love interests. And I think when we see this on TV, in our minds, it starts to look normal, or we think it's okay that this happens. We know it's wrong, but it becomes normalized through entertainment and media as well. Take the show Sex and the City, for example. Carrie wasn't even Big's first choice. Yeah, he was a wealthy guy who had charm and he knew how to make a woman feel special while he was making other women feel the same way that same day. And he wouldn't let her move on, even when he was with other women, and even when he was married, and even in the show Scandal, which is my favorite. But if you were to dissect Liv and Fitz's relationship, it was really intense and had a lot of chemistry, but they both displayed toxic behavior from time to time. And I feel like as viewers, we get so invested in their love life and the drama and we're rooting for them, you know? This is probably the one time where everyone was rooting for the mistress and the president to get together, and we let that go because their chemistry was off the charts and he was in an unhealthy marriage and Liv and Fitz really loved each other and they just were really good together. But yeah, there was still toxicity in that relationship. And I'm not sure if anyone ever picked up on that. But I watched it recently and I started to really pay attention to like, okay, that is not normal behavior, or that's not something that in real life people should put up with. It makes for good TV, but that's not what real love is. It's not normal. And I feel like the earlier we're exposed to these types of relationships, whether it's in real life or in shows and movies, where the man or woman puts up with shit like that, eventually we're going to think that that's okay when it's not. Love, healthy love, is not supposed to be a roller coaster of emotions. It's peaceful, it's calm. You don't have to walk on eggshells. Your boundaries will be respected, and you'll be able to communicate in a healthy way without excessive blaming or judgment. When we think about ending a relationship or whatever it is, right? I think that oftentimes we focus on what we're going to lose in the process and forget about all that we're going to gain. When you let go of all that's unhealthy for you, there will be inner peace and freedom. There will be emotional safety. There will be positive new connections. You will find yourself again, and you will definitely experience joy again. And it's okay to feel sad when something comes to an end. You know, there was history there. There are good memories as well. But when the bad outweighs the good, it's necessary to walk away for your peace of mind, your happiness, your sanity, and because you deserve it. Because you deserve healthy love, not one that's going to make you question your worth, that is going to make you feel less than. You deserve a healthy relationship where you feel safe and you feel heard and you're respected and you're valued. I hope that this episode was helpful and that I was able to shed light on toxic behaviors that are not considered normal in a romantic relationship or any relationship for that matter. If you are in an unhealthy relationship, I hope that you realize sooner rather than later that you deserve better. We all deserve nourishing and healthy relationships, especially when we have a choice in the matter. That's it for today's episode. Please take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys next week. I don't wish you